Hello, everybody. First of all, I would like to apologize to you, Keelan, to everybody who's listening, and to everybody who's not listening, because I was super busy over the last 24 hours. Me and my girlfriend, we went to a local MMA tournament, and it was fucking hilarious. And then we got home pretty late and had to get up early to make some wood for my mom's fireplace. So we had basically the whole day of work, and I just watched the races on my phone. And on the drive back home, I watched the Moto 3 race live during breakfast. And the Moto 2 race I rewatched after we were done with the wood. And then the MotoGP race I rewatched on my way home in the car. Like she was driving, I was watching. And therefore, I didn't get to make any memes yet. I have some ideas on what to do, but I didn't get the time. I just got home like 20 minutes ago. So I have to apologize to you, Keelan, to everybody else. But I have tomorrow some time and I will post something. I did one meme with Manu, and yeah, he texted me that he wanted to do something there, so I just quickly posted it because Manu was finishing in P5 again. But yeah, now back to the actual podcast. Hello, Keelan. How are you, and how did you enjoy the first ever Indian GP?
Leo, I'm very good. Thank you very much, my friend. And hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Bad MotoGP podcast. And we are coming to you in the aftermath of the Buddha International Circuit Grand Prix from India. It's been a tale of two events, Leo, really, to be honest with you. First of all, I appreciate your circumstances about the memes. I'm sure nobody has a problem with that. For 99% of the season, people have been getting meme after meme after meme after meme. So let's be honest, I'm sure for one event people will be entirely understanding. But back to the racing, and like I said, it's been the tale of two events, and I'm going to tell you why. Firstly, we had this whole mess about the visas and people not getting into India and people getting flights from Paris and London the day before the event. That was a nightmare, but we struck gold when we got there. It turns out this is actually a brilliant circuit, which is great to see. I thought it would be a complete nightmare, that it would be full of potholes and that nobody would be able to do anything, and we would be having a real bad time talking about it. It turns out, though, everybody loves it, which is great. It turns out the track itself is fantastic. It's given us some great, great racing, and I'm looking forward to breaking it down. Have to say, it was a great weekend.
Yes, definitely. And I love the whole theme of MotoGP going to India because
Yes.
it's such an important country for motorcycle manufacturers.
Hmm.
It's such an important country for MotoGP as a brand. And then it's very, very good that we get a race to India because the Indian people just deserve it. I mean, they have 1 point, whatever, how many billion people there, and
Hmm.
somebody is a MotoGP fan there. I know a couple of people through my account from India, and it's nice that we finally get to go there. And I would happily only have 1 or 2 races in Spain and more races like on in those countries because it's amazing. Like the whole infrastructure seemed to be okay-ish, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement
Hmm.
considering everything that went down. But I mean, it's the first event. Naturally, this will more or less happen. And I hope next year will be better. I saw on the provisional calendar that they moved the race back into October, which is nice. I'll be like 1 or 2 weeks back,
Hmm.
um, which should help with the rain because if you follow my memes, I made the meme about the rain being there, with the Donald Trump. I've never seen this before with the climate diagram. Like, honestly, I just want to rant about this because yesterday I thought it was fucking stupid. You go there towards the end of like the rain season or whatsoever. I'm not too familiar with the the climate in India, but it appears to be that in the summer, our summer month, there is a lot of rain there. So you go there on the end of this period, and then there's a wet track. And I totally understand that they delayed the Moto3 qualifying because it was
Mm-hmm.
just pouring and it was crazy. But the fact that they delayed the MotoGP sprint because of the wet patches, then they make this stupid wet session, then wait until the track is dry again, and just get on my fucking nerves because I just wanted to watch the race and fuck off because I had to go to the tournament, so or like to the fight night. And yeah, it was stupid in my opinion. And also, I thought in yesterday's sprint it was extremely dangerous that the turn one incident wasn't cleared up like for 3 laps or whatsoever. Like if
That was
somebody
bad.
crashed
That was
and
bad.
there was debris on the track. So I like the red flag today in the Moto2 race a lot because it's just dangerous and there's no need for somebody to crash like Marc Marquez did in 2013 in Silverstone, where they almost wiped out all the marshals who tried to pick up Cal Crutchlow's bike. No need to see this again, so I'm happy with red flags in those circumstances. But yeah, yesterday I felt like it was a mess from race direction, from yeah, basically just race direction. The stewards didn't do anything stupid this weekend, which is weird. But yeah, let's get into the races because there's so much to talk about. And to get this out of the way because it was fucking annoying yesterday. And today we had no rain, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a very, very interesting MotoGP race. I mean, Marco Bezzecchi was better and faster than anyone, and he was already yesterday better and faster than anyone. But unfortunately, he got sent wide by Luca Marini in the sprint. But during the race, he did what he was supposed to do after yesterday's performance. So he just shows how much of a talent he is, how good he is. And what was interesting, it was the first GP in like however many years that they went to a new track without testing there previously. So you just saw who can go onto a bike and be fast. And I believe this is also a reason why Honda was so good and why Fabio was so good, because those riders are just good and they make things work because they are naturally gifted riders.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I thought that Marco Bezzecchi was just incredible. No need to talk more about this. I mean, he was 6.5 seconds ahead and crazy good. But like the main topic for me is how fucking stupid Pecco Bagnaia is. Like, what the fuck? He crashed 5 times this season already. Like, the thing in Argentina was almost the same as today because remember he overtook Alex Marquez in a rain, and it
Mm-hmm.
feels like Pecco is extremely good when shit is hitting the fan. Like when he's in the race and is super concentrated and the pressure is high. Like the best example for this would be the Marc Marquez battle in Aragon 2021, his first victory. It was crazy how good he is in those circumstances. Or when he's defending and just can't afford to make a mistake. Then he's very, very good. But as soon as he is out of this, let's say, danger zone, like overtaking Alex Marquez in Argentina or now overtaking Jorge Martin and pulling a little bit out of a gap, then he starts to make mistakes and it feels like he is just not concentrated anymore. Like when he's under pressure, he's extremely good. He's such an incredible rider, and he's a world champion for a reason. Because last year and at the end of the season, he was under pressure, and now for whatever reason, it felt like he made a little bit of a mistake because he was too late on the brakes and tried to kind of save it into the corner and then crashed.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have this tunnel vision, everybody who has ever done some level of competition or exercise kind of or doing a sport knows more or less what I'm talking about. For me,
Mm-hmm.
it's when I'm fighting, and it's just instincts. Everything happens with instincts because you can't think. And when you start to think about stuff, then shit is hitting the fan
Then you
because
overthink it.
yes, could be like for example, for me, it's like when I'm thinking about, okay, where are the openings and what to do, it's usually that I'm a little bit behind, especially when it comes to counter striking. But
Hmm.
when I'm just on my instincts, it's quite okay. Like,
Yeah.
so, and to me, it feels like Pecco is in this state of mind where when he's really under pressure, he has this tunnel vision and he's extremely good. But then when he's out of this, that his concentration lacks for like 1 or 2 seconds and he crashed because all of his crashes, or like most of his crashes, are in those situations, you know? Shit like Catalonia or like Le Mans, it happens. It's called a motor race, you know?
Hmm.
But Austin, Argentina, and now India. Those were totally unnecessary crashes, and I think he gets away with it because he's battling Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin for a championship.
Hmm.
Not that those riders are bad, but I think they aren't quite there yet, and they
Yeah.
have a little bit of development and especially consistency to do. But when we talk about Marc Marquez potentially going to Ducati next season and having a good competitive bike, he can't get away with this. And it's crazy that he keeps making these mistakes. It's so incredibly stupid. And I don't know why he isn't able to concentrate for like 45 minutes and then be stupid again.
Yeah, so there's kind of 2 points to make here because this is a very big part of the discussion. Excuse me. First of all, the reason I love India is the same reason you love India. Because nobody's had a chance to test there or gather any data there, we see the cream rising to the top. And I really enjoyed that this weekend. You know, Fabio Quartararo on the podium, amazing, brilliant to see. Marc Marquez, uber competitive again, great to see. And it's nice once in a while coming away from European circuits where everybody knows what to do and we all know that the best bike is going to make the biggest difference. It was really nice seeing the best riders being able to make an actual difference this weekend. It was really refreshing and it was really enjoyable. And we'll get on to the rest of them later, but I think that's just a very good point to make. Especially with Marco Bezzecchi, absolutely outstanding all weekend. But coming on to the Pecco Bagnaia point, I think you have an excellent perspective on this. Pecco Bagnaia reminds me a lot of a football player called Raheem Sterling. If you follow football, you'll know who I'm talking about. And the point that I make with Raheem Sterling is when you put him in a goal scoring opportunity where he has no time to think, he'll score for you. But if you play a ball out to him in the wing of the football pitch and you give him time to think, he'll overthink it and he'll give the ball away. And this is a lot like what Pecco Bagnaia does. If you give him no time to think during those 45 minutes, he'll bang out lap after lap after lap after lap because that's what he's so good at doing. But if you put Pecco Bagnaia in a position where he's allowed to think and overthink against himself, that's where you see these mistakes happening. We saw it in Argentina. We saw it again today. We've seen it throughout this season where Pecco Bagnaia is in a position where he is given the chance to overthink himself. He tries to outbreak himself, he tries to be too smart, and he ends up dumping it. And that is becoming a very real problem because it's a theme that we've discussed, has it not, throughout the entirety of the season, where he's allowed to overthink. He overthinks and he crashes. And if you want to retain your world championship, you can't do that. Now, I think again, you've made a very interesting point where because he's up against Ducati versus Ducati versus Ducati, it's almost okay because it's Marco Bezzecchi and because it's Jorge Martin. But if this is a Marc Marquez next year, if this is a Franco Morbidelli next year when he goes to Pramac, it's a very different discussion because those riders will be able to punish you and they will pick up the pieces that you leave behind. So I think with Pecco, it was very disappointing. You know, you have to be able to maintain the concentration or you're just inviting trouble for yourself. That's really the crux of it.
The thing is, it's not just this season. The last 3 seasons, Pecco risked to lose the championship. In 2021, he did because of
Hmm.
his crashing. In 2022, he almost did, but he was incredible towards the end of the season. And Fabio had some bad luck, for example, in Aragon. But Pecco was just outstanding last season. After
Very
the
true.
single, it was crazy how good he was. And now this season again, I mean, I don't think Jorge Martin will be able to keep the consistency up until Valencia. But I mean, it's a huge danger now because it's just 13 points, and God knows what happens. Like we saw with Marco Bezzecchi in the sprint, anything can happen in the first corner where you are not at fault, or like in Catalonia where this first corner crash happened with Enea Bastianini and also with Pecco. And this stuff happens in motorcycle racing, and it's nice to have a bit of a cushion, but not just throw it away yourself.
Hmm.
And I don't know what the problem is because it's happening over the past 3 years consistently. The same thing. He crashes like 5 times a season. Some of them are just racing incidents, like Catalonia last year, but some of them are just stupid and his mistakes. There was no reason to crash in America. There was no reason to crash in Argentina. And there was no reason to crash today in India. I don't know what his deal is. Why he isn't able to fix those mistakes. But yeah, to your point, Mark Marquez, he is ruthless and he's good everywhere. He is so talented. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to win a world championship. If Mark is on a Ducati next year and Pecco isn't at his A game, you can't drop 5 races against Mark Marquez. I mean, Mark usually drops 1 or 2 races a season. It's normal because it's such a long season. I don't think Frankie will be a threat. So I think Frankie will be more of an Alex Marquez situation next year, where he has a lot of good races, but still has to adapt to the bike. And here or there has some good moments where he shines, but I don't think he can keep the consistency up and win races week in and week out. But I'm all here for it if he does. So, but I think a Mark Marquez is a different caliber of rider than a
Mm.
Frank, and for the sake of it, Mark Bezzecchi. But I just don't know what's going on inside Pecco's head. That is just a mistake which repeats itself. And during the race, I even thought about it like, Pecco didn't crash for a while. That's nice. And I thought like he seems to figure it out towards the end of the season always. I don't know what's going on with him. Maybe he just needs some time. And then he's good again. And then 2 laps later he crashed. And I was like, no, you fucking idiot. Like, and it's so frustrating to watch because there's no reason. Like, if you crash in a situation where you are battling for the victory and you have to make a gap up, or you are just in a first corner and say, nobody will blame you for this. I mean, stuff like Le Mans, stuff like Catalonia, it happens. I mean, it's a motor race. It's obviously so chaotic that you can't keep yourself out of danger all the time.
Hmm.
But those 3 races we mentioned, and going back to last season, going back to 2021, and even 2020 in Misano, where he was leading the race, there's no reason to crash, and he seems to always do it. And I don't know what's going on with him. And it's one thing that it happens, but the other thing which concerns me a lot is it keeps happening over like 3 or 4 years now. And I don't know why, I don't know what's going on, but it seems from the outside like he is good under pressure because he's in his tunnel vision in the zone. But when he's comfortable, he allows himself to go out of this zone sometimes and then make mistakes. And like Jorge Martin did a mistake in the last lap. He was super wide into, I believe, turn 4 after the long straight, but he just picked the bike up and was cautious about it. There was no reason for Pecco not to accept in the moment, okay, I have this. I made this mistake. I was maybe a little bit too late on the brakes for this corner. Just lift the bike up, lose like half a second, even a second. Who cares? Because you are still good in the race. You're still on the podium. And it's just very frustrating.
No, I completely agree, and I know Pekka will be even more frustrated with himself. He doesn't need us to tell this to him. I do think sometimes with Pecco that he's almost the victim of his own success sometimes. And I think sometimes he gets it into his head that second place or third place isn't enough. I have to win every single race every single time. And I think there's a mindset within Pecco and maybe within Ducati as a whole that because he's won so many races this season and looked so good doing it, that second place isn't enough anymore. It has to be first every single time, every single sprint, every single race. And I think if that is the case, obviously, I don't know if it is or not. This is just speculation. But if that is the case, then I think he's approaching this with the wrong mindset to begin with. You know, Marco Bezzecchi is doing so well because he's racing free. He knows that it's okay to win, but it's okay to take second or third as well. Jorge Martin is racing free because he knows the same thing. The problem with Pecco is that I think from the outside looking in, Pecco has placed this burden on himself where if he's in second, he has to get back to the front straight away or he's not capable of accepting it. And I think if that is the case, then there's a much wider discussion here than just crashing a few times every season. It's the attitude with which you approach the race. Now, I hope that isn't the case, and I hope that I'm a million miles wrong, but I don't think I am.
Quite frankly, I think you're wrong because
Brutal, but
when
fair.
you look at Pecco's crashes, it feels like he crashes as soon as he accepts, okay, I'm second now, I'm good now. Because if he hasn't this drive inside of him to just push to the limit and be at 100%, if he's like at 99.5%, then he starts doing mistakes, you know? I think with Pecco, it's not the case of accepting a not accepting a second place. It's the case of accepting it and then not being as concentrated anymore, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. But the problem is when we look at the crash today in India, you know, Pecco never outbreaks himself. And the only time he does outbreak himself is when he's trying to make up the gap. And he feels the pressure of having to make up the gap. And with today, we saw the same thing with Marc Marquez earlier in the race. We'll obviously get on to him later. You know, both Marquez and Bagnaia kept trying to outbreak themselves to get into the corner faster to get back out again when he didn't need to. He was approaching the corners perfectly fine, and he chose that one corner to try and outbreak himself for whatever reason, and he couldn't recover it in time. So maybe you're right, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but I do think that sometimes the pressure really gets to Pecco, and I do think sometimes he feels that I've got to do every single corner so perfectly that the last time I did it perfectly isn't enough. Again, I could be wrong. I genuinely have no idea, but that's just my opinion on it.
Well, looking at the situation, I don't think he was stupid enough to think he will make up like a 6 second or 5 second gap whatsoever
No, I agree.
onto Marco Bezzecchi, because no way you're doing this, and
Not
I
a
think he
chance.
knows that. And also, he was pulling like 5 or 6 tenths out of Jorge Martin and was then again in a comfortable position and then made the mistake. You know, it's not that he's in an uncomfortable position where he has to go and
Mm-hmm.
then makes a mistake. I think it's in those situations where he kind of relaxes himself and says, okay, I'm fine. And then starts to not being concentrated anymore, you know?
Yeah, like I said, it could well be the case with Pecco. Until the day I maybe get to speak to him, I'll genuinely have no idea. But your theory's just as valid. Absolutely. It could be a sense of overconfidence, overcomfortness, and maybe that's what's doing it. But at the end of the day, who knows? But what we can agree on is that it was a bad mistake, an unnecessary mistake, and he's put a lot more pressure on himself going into Japan.
Yes, maybe he needs this pressure because
Maybe. Maybe
without
he
it,
does.
he's not able to function. And maybe if Mark Marquez pushes him to the limit every single race on a Ducati, then he won't do this mistake.
Maybe not.
Could be very possible. Who knows? Could be that Pecco plays down to his competition. You know, if his
Maybe, yeah.
competition is here, Pecco is here. But if his competition is here, Pecco is here. You know.
Yeah,
So you mentioned Mark Marquez, and I think with Mark, it's like a different case because Mark is so much over the limit with the Honda,
true.
and then try to make up the time on the brakes, because looking back at his career, that was always his specialty, where he was so incredibly fast at those corner entries. Even the
Mm.
Honda was built around it, and now Honda completely lost their front feeling. And I actually don't know if Honda brought anything new from the Misano test. Like they said, okay, screw this, we will run the new chassis, we will run new this, new that, who knows? Like officially you just have to keep the engine because you can't change this during the season.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe the Honda just made a huge step forward. Maybe it's just because of India. Maybe the track suits Honda, or maybe it's just because nobody else or nobody has data on it, and it's just what happened there. But Joan Mir and Marc Marquez had an incredible weekend. Marc was super fast despite his crash, and I mean, it gotta be embarrassing to be on a KTM and be slower than Marc Marquez during the race, despite him crashing. You know, Mark finished in ninth, and Polt and Jack Miller finished in 13th and 14th. It was honestly pretty embarrassing to think
Mm-hmm.
about it. And I mean, Joan Mir was just amazing, and but he almost fucked it up again. I mean,
It's true.
he almost fucked it up, and I thought, you stupid motherfucker, just give Brad Binder the position. Who cares? You're fifth now. Give him the position and just double your points in one race. I mean, or triple your points. I don't know, but he almost fucking lost it. But yeah, I'm very happy for Joan Mir because he has been through some rough time, and it was so refreshing to see a Repsol Honda on the grid again because usually you don't see them because there are loads of Ducatis in front of them. So and like Fabio Quattraro on the Yamaha, it was so nice to have this diversity again. And with Aprilia, I think Aprilia is in a weird state when they have a lot of data, they're good, but when they approach new circuits, like remember last year in the LA Championship, Charge completely fell apart after Aragon because they had no data on the overseas races, and it feels like Aprilia just falls apart when they don't have good data. And with KTM, I don't know what's
Oh,
going
for
on.
God's sake,
I
man.
mean, it's KTM. They're up and down every time. And I think we're witnessing now a very, very interesting race on who will get dropped for Pedro because it's just absolutely crazy how nobody is performing with KTM.
Yeah, so Leo, as you were saying, the KTM situation is just. I mean, it is embarrassing, when Marc Marquez crashes, loses about 10 seconds of time, and you still finish behind him, It's not a good situation to be in at all. Now, to be fair with India, it is a bit of a spanner in the works because everybody's adapting to it. It's a brand new track, everybody has to try and get on with it, so that is a valid concern. But I think the problem is when somebody crashes, loses so much time, and they still manage to blow ahead of you. That is a big, big problem for KTM. And I know you were saying there it's embarrassing about, who's going to be the one to lose out to Pedro Acosta. And to be honest, in the wider scheme of things, no KTM rider, with the exception of Brad Binder, really covered themselves in any kind of glory this weekend. I mean, to be fair to Brad, there's a reason he's so highly valued by the factory. He can pretty much go into any environment and get a decent result out of it. But if you look at the state of play with KTM, Augusto Fernandez had to retire. Jack Miller was nowhere, and Paul Espargaro was nowhere either. So, really, it was a very, very bad weekend for KTM. And even on Friday, they just looked nowhere near on the pace at all. In fact, I would argue they were the worst manufacturer out of everybody this weekend, including the Japanese manufacturers, which is a real shock to say for this season. But yeah, real disappointing weekend for KTM. And those riders who are all in the hot seat to be ejected, they're all under a little more pressure after this weekend because none of them stood out well at all.
I had a thought. If Marc Marquez indeed goes to Gresini, which seems to be possible
Mm-hmm.
since I believe Paolo Ciabatti came out and said they have the opportunity to sign Marc Marquez.
Yeah, that's right. He said that to DAZN on Friday, I think it was.
I don't know. Somebody from Ducati said it anyways. I think it was Paolo Ciabatti. That if he says something like this, he knows maybe a bit more than you and I do. So
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a exciting possibility for both. And yeah, but to not get into this, what if he goes to Grisini, Pedro goes to KTM Factory Racing, and they put Jack Miller on the Repsol Honda? I had this thought today because, in my opinion, it would make so much sense because Jack Miller is good at developing bikes. He has a good feeling for it. And also, Honda is in a situation where they desperately need a person like Jack Miller who can develop a bike. So, yeah, it would be very interesting. But if I was KTM, I still would put Pedro and Brad in the factory team and Paul and Jack Miller in Tech 3 as more or less a developmental team. But yeah, back to the race. I mean, Paul was 10 seconds and Jack 12 seconds behind Mark Marquez, and Mark lost about 10 or 12 seconds, maybe 15 seconds, who knows, during his lap where he crashed. So it's a bad look considering that the Honda is significantly worse than the KTM and it had no business of being there. But KTM is also rough because it's a total different motorcycle to everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, but it's weird that we see this somewhat of a decline of Jack Miller because at the beginning of the season he was very, very good, but now he seems to struggle a lot. And I more or less anticipated it before the season, but I thought it would be more of a adaptation issue
Mm-hmm.
where it just takes time. But it's like a Benjamin Button situation. You were born, then all of a sudden into KTM and everything, and then you're developing backwards in a way, you know. So yeah, who the fuck knows what's happening with KTM and Pedro? But yeah, regarding the MotoGP race, it's just a shit show when you consider that Brad is doing a good job, yes, but
Very good
everybody
job.
else is taking a shit for now 3, 4, 5 races in a row. When was the last time? I believe in Austria was a good race weekend for Pole,
Mm-hmm.
but more in the sprint, I believe. But I can't remember. Like the whole return of Pole was good at the beginning, but now it's getting worse as well.
Yeah.
With Jack, the beginning of the season was good. I mean, Augusto is still a rookie, okay, but yeah, it's not a good look if everybody is taking a shit now except Brad Binder because you are held to those standards as a KDM rider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean you're absolutely spot on with what you've said. I'm not sure really how to approach this first. I guess I'll start with Jack Miller. The Repsol Honda rumors they're not that much of a shock to me because I could see that happening. Jack, for all of his weaknesses, which he does have, he's a very good development rider. He's a very good workhorse, very good test rider. At any given test, Jack will give you over 100 laps on the bike to try and work it and develop it. That is what you get from Jack Miller. But the problem with Jack Miller during the races is that he just doesn't have any momentum. He falls back, he falls back, he falls back, and he cannot get it going again. And in my opinion, it is no coincidence that since the Pedro Acosta rumors started coming up, that his form has taken a goddamn nosedive. There's no coincidence whatsoever. Ever since these Pedro Acosta rumors started hotting up, his form has dropped off the face of a cliff because he's feeling the pressure, and the pressure has completely dismantled his season, unfortunately. And with Paul Espargaro, I do feel a lot of sympathy because he could have and arguably should have been paralyzed after that accident at the beginning of the season. Thank the Lord he is not. But the Paul Espargaro comeback story just isn't igniting. It's not going anywhere. And he's still, towards the bottom of the grid. He's really going nowhere. Augusto Fernandez is a rookie, so I do feel for him. But again, it's just not clicking. It's not happening for any of them. And like you said, and this is the point that people don't realize, you know, you are held to the standard of the best rider in your manufacturer and in your team, and by a country mile, that's Brad Binder. And the problem is that Brad Binder is here and everybody else is here, and it's not even close. They're not even putting up a fight. And I don't know what you do if you're KTM. You might have to clean out Tech 3 and half of the factory, because Pedro Acosta is going to come up and he's probably going to be very fast. But Tech 3 is not going to be that reliable either, I don't think. With Paul, unfortunately, you've seen what you're going to get from him. And Augusto Fernandez just hasn't shown a great deal either. It is a problem. So KTM have got a lot of thinking to do and a lot of soul searching to do as well before the beginning of 2024.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like the idea of dropping somebody after their rookie season. I think it's not a good look. I
Mm-hmm.
think you should at least give them 2 seasons and then evaluate if you could see a good development curve. Like, for example, with Fabio Di Giannantonio. Now we know, okay, he's garbage. But last season could have been that it was just the adaptation to MotoGP, but now, okay, we know. But after one season, you don't really know. And with Jack Miller and Paul, more or less the same. With Paul, a little bit different because he has some experience on the KTM. But I mean, Jack Miller, it's rough to give him just half a season now, or like a little bit more than half a season, and then say, okay, he's not good. I mean, I think 2 years should be the minimum to give somebody, and then you could evaluate, okay, where are we? What in which direction are we heading? Is this something we need for the future? But KTM has put themselves in a situation where they have to drop somebody for Pedro. I mean, and understandably so, because arguably he's already their best rider. I think he's a lot better than
And
Brad
he's not
Binder.
even in the same division.
Yeah, I mean, argue from a talent perspective, in my opinion, he's just better than Brad Binder. He's better than Jorge Martin. He's better than Aleix Espargaro. He's better than Pecco. Like the ceiling is Mark Marquez, you know? I mean, Pedro can really be a multiple time world champion. What he did today was nothing short of brilliant. And he has just a way to ride a motorcycle where nobody else can keep up with him. And I mean, of course, you don't want to lose this kind of talent, because if he is on a KTM, he will make the KTM work. So, I understand that KTM is in a bit of a difficult situation, but you can't tell me that last season they didn't know that Pedro was good. You know, they put themselves into the situation with giving Paul Espargaro, for example, a 2-year contract. So, yeah, but different topic. Regarding the races, I thought that I got the feeling that it was just because of India that Honda was so good and Yamaha was so
No,
good.
I
You know,
absolutely.
like I can't really imagine that the Misano test for Honda was so successful, especially after what I talked about with Jack and um, the problems Honda still have and so on. So I don't really think it's really um, Honda's time now. But I think it's very, very good for Joan Mir to finally get some confidence back. I think also Mark Marcus, we saw today and yesterday, he was fighting again. He didn't give up. Like it looked like in Germany, he just gave up, you know? And
Yeah.
then it carried over for a couple of races. And now it feels like Mark is being Mark again, where he has this desire to win. And I hope it will be successful with Honda, because I don't like the whole situation there, because he is somewhat responsible for the bike being how it is today. You know,
Yeah.
he was responsible for his own injuries for the sake of it, but also it's the way Honda developed the bike even before his injury. It was his, you know, it was his team, it was his factory in a sense. And then to just jump ship and say, okay, see, I wouldn't want to be here, to be on a better motorcycle where he has a significant responsibility that Honda is the way Honda is right now. then I'm questioning a lot if this is more of a Kevin Durant going to Golden State situation, if you
Good
know what I'm talking
reference.
about.
Good reference. I like that.
But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think Mark is insane when it comes to being equal with Valentino. I think
Yes,
he
I
just
agree.
wants this ninth title, and he's just obsessed with it. So, I mean, from this perspective, I could definitely understand it. But yeah, I think Honda definitely has some work to do, and I really hope that they took something from Misano and just put it onto the bike now and say, okay, we are concentrating on 2024, and that they found something what's working, because I thought it was brilliant that we saw Honda back in the top 10.
Yeah, it was great. And listen, out of this weekend, Honda are one of the most interesting topics of discussion, which is something we haven't said in probably 2 or 3 years now, which is really, really weird to say. But listen, delighted for Joan Mir. I think this will do him the world of good because he's had such an awful season, and he's the first to admit that. It's been a terrible season for him. Delighted he's got back into the top four, top five mix. It's where he does deserve to be. But with India, it's like I said at the very beginning of the episode, what I love about India is that it's an X factor track where the talent will make the difference. The bike will not make the difference, the talent will. And this is what MotoGP should have been all along. It's all well and good with the Jerez and the Mizanos and this, that, and the other, where we know Ducati's the best bike and we know they're going to lock out the grid and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. It's nice seeing a track where the talent actually stacks up to everybody else. That's why Marc Marquez was so competitive this weekend. It's why Joan Mir was so competitive this weekend. And it was refreshing to see. I really, really enjoyed it. Even though I'm not the biggest Marc Marquez fan, him doing good is good for the sport. You can't argue that. Now, aside from Honda doing well, which was good to see, the Marc Marquez discussion is very, very interesting, and I'm going to tell you why. It was reported on TNT, which is, of course, the broadcast I get, and it's been reported throughout the paddock that, of course, MotoGP goes to Motegi next weekend to Japan, and it's been reported that Marc Marquez is meeting with the leadership of Honda to discuss what he does for 2024. Apparently, the reports say that Marc Marquez wants to deliver his decision in person. So it's highly likely that a decision's been made already, and he simply is going to tell HRC leadership one way or the other. Now, the reason that's interesting is because of the point you just made, Leo, and it's a very interesting point. Marc Marquez is obsessed with number 10. He is I genuinely believe it keeps him up at night thinking about that last world championship being better than Valentino, being the legacy, being the star. And I genuinely don't think Marc Marquez gives a rat's ass what he has to do to get it. If he has to do it on a Ducati, he will do it on a Ducati. It's not like Valentino, where he went from the best bike in the grid to the worst in Yamaha back in 2004 and won the titles. Marc inherited a great Honda. The bike's now worse, and now he's willing to jump ship to the best bike in the grid to get the 10th. So I think it's a very, very interesting discussion, and it's very intriguing to see where Mark is next year, because I think all the injuries and all the events of the last couple of years have made Mark realize that he doesn't have much time left. And if he wants to get that last championship, 2024 might be his last opportunity to do it. And I think he might just have run out of patience with Honda.
What do you think about Jorge Martin and his suit?
Um, Interesting discussion. I think with Alpine Stars, I'm not going to sink the boot into Alpine Stars because the only time this has happened before this was Fabio Quartararo a year or two ago.
No, 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 no. It happened with Jorge Martin in Austria last year as well,
Oh wait,
where his
yes, you're
leather
right,
was
it did.
open.
Yeah, you're right,
With
it did.
Fabio, it happened in Catalonia, and it happened in Aragon,
Mm.
where the zipper ripped open where when he had the crash with Mark there in the first lap.
Yeah, you're right.
So
Sorry, I
we're
forgot
now
about those.
talking
Yeah.
about four instances where Alpine Star zippers, for one reason or another, didn't hold up.
Yeah, it is a very weird situation with Alpine Stars because, alongside Dionysi, Alpine Stars are revered as one of the best, safest motorcycle protector brands in the world. And it is becoming concerning, the frequency with which this is happening. Now, I do have a theory on this, and this is just my theory. I don't know if this has been put forward by anybody else. I think with the conditions in India, the heat and the pressure are so extreme that that might have affected the zip on the leathers and caused them to burst open. Because I know during race conditions, the temperature was around 35, 36 degrees Celsius, which is extremely hot. And I think when you have that level of heat and when you're constantly maneuvering and switching around in the bike, maybe those factors combined to the point where the zip just couldn't hold up anymore. Now, whether there's any scientific validity to that or not, I don't know. That's just my own theory as to why that might have happened. But it also doesn't account for the fact that it's happened in Europe as well, where the conditions are much less extreme. So I do accept that. To be honest, I actually have no idea. I really don't. That's my explanation for India, but for the previous situations, I really can't account for it.
I mean, I don't think your explanation makes any sense, to be honest, because it didn't rip open. It was just sliding down, and we didn't see if Jorge Martin actually pulled it open or not. I mean, we can speculate on that because he
Mhm.
was feeling the heat
I
quite
think the heat was a
literally,
big part of it, one way
and
or another.
I don't know. I haven't read anything, but it could be that he opened it by himself and to cool himself down and then close it again, which would be utterly reckless and stupid.
Yeah,
It, but it also could have been that it just went open. But I don't know why it's only happening with Alpine Stars, and why there isn't some kind of a lock at the top. Why is the zipper going down, and why could he pull it just back up? By the way, shout out, it was a high pressure situation. He had like 1 second to pull
yeah.
it back up, and he did it. He instantly got it right, and it was very, very high skill by Jorge Martin. But I guess that's something you practice when you're an Alpine Star athlete. So, but to go back to the race, I think as soon as you see that a rider has not sufficient equipment to protect himself at a crash, he should be black flagged. I don't care if the zipper is just open, because what if there were enough corners where Jorge Martin had the leather open? What if he crashed? What if he was sliding on his stomach into a gravel trap with the zipper not closed? I mean, it can be very, very dangerous. I don't know how it would affect the airbag, but I think as soon as the rider, for whatever reason, doesn't have the sufficient safety equipment needed to protect himself at a crash, he should be black flagged. I don't care if it's just a zipper, you know, like with Fabio back in Catalonia, or Jorge Martin in Austria. I mean, as soon as the thing is open, it's not safe anymore.
I agree. I
I
do
mean,
agree.
you won't let someone ride without a helmet, even if it's just for two corners, like theoretically,
Hmm.
or take a glove off during the race and just race without a glove. I mean, you wouldn't do this. So I don't understand. Like, what if a visor rips out for one reason or another? Do you let him continue? No, because it's utterly dangerous. And I think this is Jorge Martin is very lucky that he didn't injure himself. Even Fabio in Aragon was very lucky because there was something with his zipper as well. Remember, he had those wounds on his chest, which looked very scary.
Hmm.
But honestly, as soon as something with your safety equipment isn't working properly anymore, for whatever reason, I don't care. You should be black flagged.
Yeah, listen, you're not going to get any argument from me, Leo. The priority, first and foremost, is the safety of the riders. That's just an absolute. The issue here with Jorge Martin is that the heat today seemed to affect him much more severely than any other rider on the grid. I mean, everybody's seen the pictures of Park Ferme where he damn near collapsed onto his knees because of the heat. Now, like I said, we can only speculate. I don't know. I don't have any evidence to support this. But the only two things I can think of are that either the heat somehow combined with Martin's constant movement to open the zip somehow, or the heat bothered him so badly that he took it down to try and get some extra air. Those are the only theories really that can abound. Like I said, I'm not going to slander and I'm not going to criticize Alpine Stars because there's no evidence to suggest that it was a technical defect on the leathers. I think either Martin, because we know Jorge Martin's a very physical rider, right? You know, he's always got his shoulder down on the tarmac. Maybe the heat somehow combined with his constant movement to open the leathers. I don't know. Or it could have just been that the heat was bothering him so insanely badly that he opened it to get some relief and got it straight back up again. Either way, I think your point is valid that as soon as as soon as the equipment no longer works, you should be taken out of the race for your own safety. I do agree. And I think if the stewards had seen or known how badly the heat was affecting him, they probably would have got him out of the race as well. It's like in a fight. If a fighter can no longer protect himself, it's the job of the referee to stop the fight. The same with racing. If a rider is no longer capable of being protected, it's the job of the steward to protect the rider. So listen, I'm not arguing with you. I think if they'd have seen that differently, they probably would have black flagged Jorge. But look, at the end of the day, what's happened's happened, and we can't turn back time either.
I mean, I still think it's strange that it only happens to Alpine Stars. I've never seen this before with any other brand,
Well,
but
I've never seen it
we
with Furigan, and I've never seen it with Dianese either. That's a very valid point. But the thing is with these leathers, as you know very well, they have to undergo very rigorous testing in order to be classified as race safe. So what's happening with them? The Lord only knows, because I don't.
and it's still weird that it's two times Fabio and two times Jorge Martin
Yeah, true.
because Mark Marquez didn't have this. Maybe they aren't sufficiently closing the zipper.
Maybe.
But then I think it's Alpine Star's job to design a zipper that doesn't go open under any circumstances. Like,
Mm,
why can't you build in a lock? Like, you pull it up and then you, whatever, turn it for 90 degrees and it's locked. It should be possible.
Yeah, I agree. Again, to be honest, I have no idea about the technical specs of a race suit, so I don't know how they would do that. I don't know how this would be possible. I'm assuming it is possible in some level. But really, what we have to do is we would have to go to Alpine Stars and ask what's going on, because they're the only people that know. I mean, they're the
Yeah.
people we trust to make these suits, so they have to know what's going on with them. I've never seen an RST suit do it. I've never seen a Furigon suit do it. I've never seen a Dianese suit do it. Like you said, it's only Alpine Stars and it's only Fabio and Jorge. So I don't really know, but it is an important topic to bring up at the same time.
Yeah. And I would like to talk about Moto 2. I think we kind of covered MotoGP, right?
We haven't covered Yamaha, and I
Okay.
do think they're worthy
Oh,
of discussion because they had some great results today.
yes. Honestly, the overtake Jorge Martin pulled on Fabio
Mm.
Quartararo was such a big dick move. I mean, it could have gone sideways so hard, but he just made it work. He like you have no business being in front of me. Shut the fuck up. Go back now. I mean, it was crazy, but like Yamaha could be that the tractor suits Yamaha, who knows? But I think again, it's just Fabio being brilliant because Fabio's a brilliant rider, and nobody else has any data on it. And Frankie had a good race yesterday in the sprint. He was very, very unlucky, but I mean, he finished in seventh, which is nice. But Fabio was just utterly, utterly good, and his top speed wasn't too bad. I'm just looking at it.
Mm.
Um, Oh no, that's the average speed. Fuck. Wait a second. Yeah, tell me what you think about Fabio and Yamaha, and I will look up the top speed.
Well, I am happy to die on the hill that Fabio Quartararo is the most talented motorcycle racer in the paddock right now. I'm happy to stand on that, and I still maintain that that's the truth. To get a podium on that piece of garbage bike is just phenomenal. It doesn't matter if it's a new track, an old track, whatever. To be able to hold off the riders behind him and to very nearly steal second off of Jorge Martin is absolutely miraculous in my opinion. And I think he had a brilliant race for the entire duration today. Franco Morbidelli, that's my guy. I've always been a fan of him, and I'm delighted to see that he's done so well. Funny enough, he started doing well as soon as he announced he's leaving Yamaha, but we move. So great result for him today as well. But yeah, look, as far as Yamaha goes, this is not a reprieve for them, and it's not me saying they've done some kind of good job. The track's an X factor, and the only good thing the track's done is it's allowed the talent to come through and make the difference, not the bikes. So, because the bikes haven't had to make a difference, Quartararo and Morbidelli have been able to show how good they truly are. And I'm delighted for them because of that, because they deserve some good results after all the effort they've been putting in this season.
Yes, I just looked up the top speeds, and Yamaha isn't too bad. I mean, Fabio had the same top speed as Marco Bezzecchi had, so you could argue Fabio probably was in the slipstream a lot more than Marco Bezzecchi was. But when you compare him to the other Ducatis, to KTM, he's like inside of 5 kilometers an hour on top speed, which is nice. But
Mm,
I think they ran the lighter aero package, not those big ass heavy wings.
mm.
So this could be an effect. And I definitely think that Yamaha's problem is not the top speed, it's rear grip, it's front feeling, it's
It's
everything
Arrow.
else. But you don't lose so much time during the season for being 2, 3, 4, 5 kilometers an hour slower on the straight. That's not the problem here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. And the problem with Massimo Meregali and Lynn Jarvis is they've come out after the Misano test and they're at odds with Fabio. And Maio Meregali's come out and said, oh, the bike's better because it's faster. And Fabio Quartararo has come out and basically told Maio Meregali indirectly, the bike isn't better just because it's faster. They still can't use the speed that they're finding for the engine. The bike still can't cut through the air the way a Ducati or a KTM or an Aprilia can. The aero still isn't there. The rear grip, the rear, the effing rear grip has been a problem since Valentino Rossi told them it was a problem. And everybody thought Valentino was the crazy old man who was on his way out. Guess what? Valentino was right, and they still haven't addressed it. The rear grip is still non existent. The front end feeling has gone back. Yes, they've gotten the top speed up, and that's a good thing, don't get me wrong. But even if you're watching the race today and you look at Fabio in third, he still looks like he's nowhere near close to getting to Jorge Martin on the straight, and that's because the arrow isn't there.
I thought it was much more obvious how much he loses on acceleration when he was battling with Jorge Martin.
Exactly.
When Jorge Martin overtook him, he was pulling away a couple of meters on the next acceleration zone. It was crazy
He was
how bad
walking
the
away
Yamaha
from
is.
him.
And even like in the last corner, you could imagine if somebody defends so aggressively like Jorge Martin did, that you could get them on the cutback. But Jorge Martin knew he could get away with it because the dude behind him was riding a Yamaha, and he
Yeah.
was still out dragging him despite having much worse of a line to exit the corner there.
Exactly, that's what it is. And this is the problem with Yamaha. Now they're fixated on top speed. And top speed's great, don't get me wrong. You'll never hear me complain about top speed. But you have to be able to use the top speed. It's not just about having a great engine. The bike has to be able to use the top speed in order to be able to get past other bikes. That's the whole problem we've been having. And I completely get I completely get Fabio's frustration because the engineers are clearly not understanding what he's asking them. Fabio was saying, yes, top speed's great, but I still can't cut through the air. To use the top speed, I need better aero, I need better rear grip. And Yamaha aren't addressing it. They just haven't listened to him. And to be honest, I think Fabio, I know this is a bit of a bold prediction. I think Fabio's gone after 24 because Yamaha just aren't listening to him, and I don't see them making that bike better for next season. I just
Yeah.
don't see it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very excited to see what happens with Fabio
Oh, yes.
uh, over the next couple of years, because I think he will definitely leave. But yeah, now I think we covered
Yeah,
MotoGP,
I think
and
we've covered everything.
because I want to get to a very, very important point for
Hmm.
me, Zonta fucking Van den
Come
Goatbergh.
on.
I mean, the dude is such an incredible, nice young man. I mean, we talked for hours in Assen when we did the podcast. He's so friendly, he's so nice, and he finally got what he deserves. He had a very, very good race, and you could see it more or less coming since the summer break, like Silverstone, he had the front row, but then somehow the race didn't go his way, and it looked like he didn't belong there. Like, he was dropping from P3 on the grid down to whatever 20th. It was very bad, Silverstone. Then in Austria he crashed. He had a good pace but crashed, and he was pretty unlucky in Misano as well. So you could see that there's potential, but it never really materialized. And finally everything aligned perfectly for him, because it was a shortened race distance, which is naturally beneficial for somebody who starts in front on the grid,
Hmm.
and naturally somebody who would come from behind have a lot less time to overtake, so it's a lot more difficult. It was perfect that he got with the restart. It was perfect because it was just less time, but he had such a good pace. I mean, yes, Manu Gonzalez was faster than him and overtook him, but I was so afraid Darren Binder would take him out. Honestly, I would riot. I told my girlfriend watching this, I told her, if he takes him out in the last corner, I will fucking murder this guy. But he didn't, and Zonta did a very, very good job defending, and it was so nice to see him finally getting what he deserves. He has been in the most difficult situation in motorcycle racing I can remember. Coming from the Junior GP series on a Moto 3 bike, never have ridden a Moto 2 bike in his life before, jumping straight into the Moto 2 World Championship where everybody has the same bike. It's utterly competitive. Like, thousands of a second decide if you're first or 10th, or if you're 10th or last. It's so incredibly close, this class. And then to see him finally getting there after a couple of races where he could have but didn't, and then something went wrong again, but you could see, okay, the potential is there. Then for him to finally get there was so nice, and I'm very, very happy for him. And it's so much more satisfying to me to see Zonta in, I believe, P6 was it,
Yeah.
than, for example, Pedro winning or whatsoever. It was so nice to finally seeing him getting what he deserves so much, because A, he's a good human being, and B, because from a rider's perspective, he has had such a difficult task, and you could now see, okay, it's worth it. He's good, you
It's
know?
so amazing to see it all come together for
Yeah.
Zonta. It
Yeah.
really is. And I gotta say, I was watching Moto 2 and I was actually smiling because I know how much it means to you to see Zonta do well. And I saw him cross the line and I thought, I bet Leo's delighted. I bet he's so
Yes.
happy about this. And I
Yes.
gotta say, even for me, even though I've never had the chance to meet or talk to Zonta, I've seen his journey and I've seen what he's had to go through, and it's so nice. I mean, obviously, P6 isn't what he wants to be the best. He wants to be winning and on the podium. But to see him getting this position, to see him getting P6, and to now have that as a platform to build on in the next race, and the next race, and the next race, it's so refreshing and endearing to see because Zonta's such a nice kid, honestly. All you have to do is watch the podcast Leo did with him, and it just shines through. It really, really does. And it's so good to see him getting what he deserves and getting good results and fighting towards the front. And I gotta say, I can't really say much more than you did, only that I'm delighted for Zonta. I'm so, so happy for him. I hope he sees this and I hope he knows how proud we are of him. And I so look forward to seeing him next week as well because he should be so good in Japan too.
Yes, the thing which brings me back to the MotoGP point, nobody ever was in India. So you really see who's
You
talented on a
see the
motorcycle.
talent.
He had a good situation in qualifying where it was wet and he could really shine because he's good in wet. He's qualified in Silverstone on the front row there.
Mm.
And then in the dry where usually the big upsets happen in the rain, but this wasn't an upset. He was just fast. He showed that he belongs there. He was fast. He was fighting off so many good riders behind him. And then when Jack Dixon and Alonso Lopez crashed into one another, it
Oh
was
no.
I was like, yeah, Zonta's P5. And then Manu did what Manu does and finished in P5. You can't stop Manu from finishing in P5. But honestly, he was very, very good. And it wasn't an accident. It was he deserved this top six finish. And he really, really showed everybody, okay, I belong here in the World Championship. Because there were some doubts,
Yeah.
people more or less understandably had doubts, but I always said, like in the podcast with Zonta, we discussed it. It's not a 2-year thing because he jumped over the Moto 3 category. It's like a 4 or 5 year project, and then you could really see where he is. And I think there's a lot of good times in front of him. A lot of bad races are in front of him. Natural when you learn the class. But I really think it's important for him to get this confidence boost, to show everybody his team he belongs there. He's good at what he does because this wasn't an accident. It was good what he did today. It was very, very mature. He didn't panic when Manu overtook him. I mean, he could have thrown it away a couple of times, but he didn't. So it was a very, very, very nice performance by him. And like 10 out of 10, he couldn't have gotten any better. I mean, yes, of course he could have won, but let's be honest, it's Pedro up there,
No, I
But
mean,
I mean, it couldn't have been better for him. He was just amazing. He did what he had to do, and yeah, he was very mature and good. He was fast.
no, and listen, I mean that was the best thing about the win for me today. It's not like it's something where people can say he was lucky or he got it because someone else crashed out or something like that. He fully earned it. He stayed on track. He was incredibly mature, incredibly composed. And when Manu Gonzalez, like you rightly said, made that move on him for P5, he didn't throw it away. He didn't chuck it up the inside and take them both out. He said, okay, he's overtaken me. I've still got a great position and I'm very happy with this. And I gotta say, I'm just, it's just when you can see so much potential in somebody and you see the talent and you see it all coming together, it's such a good feeling. And like I said, I couldn't be any more delighted for Zonta. I'm just so, so happy for him.
Yes, definitely. And you could make an argument if it wasn't a shortened race distance, he still would have finished in the top 10. I mean, maybe Darren Binder would have overtaken him. Maybe even who was like Marcos Ramirez was there, Barry Baltus
Marcus,
was there,
mhm,
Philip Salach, but he had very, very, very good pace. And
very good
I mean, you
pace.
could make an argument that he still would have finished in P6, even if the race wasn't shortened. So, very, very nice. And I'm so extremely happy about it. But to switch gears now to something more interesting, Jake Dixon
Oh
got
no.
taken out, crashed twice. Alonso
Oh no.
Lopez, quote unquote, ruined his championship. So, what did you make out of this incident?
Oh boy. Oh boy, we're gonna get into trouble here. No, look, I gotta be honest, okay? When Jake Dixon went off the last time, it was funny as hell, don't get me wrong, it was really, really funny. but I thought he was overdoing it a little bit. You know, that was a racing incident back then. I have to say, this time I think he's more right to be aggrieved because Alonso Lopez just had a very not big brain moment and he's just completely slammed into the inside of Jake Dixon. And I have to say, if I was Jake Dixon, I would be pretty annoyed by today as well. I think he is much more right to be annoyed about this one than the last one with Darren Binder. I think he's much more right to be upset today because he was minding his business. I don't think he did anything wrong, and then Alonso Lopez takes it far too wide and cleans him out. That's the way I saw it, and I think Alonso Lopez should be punished for it.
I disagree because I think what happened in Silverstone was less of a racing incident than what happened today. Because, in my opinion, Darren Binder just fucked up there in Silverstone and backed out. But a very long discussion with Jake from Now Modern News about it.
Mm-hmm.
And we agreed to disagree. But regarding the Alonso Lopez situation, there was a gap because Jake Dixon ran in hot and then left the gap open, which closed again and they crashed. I still believe that a racing incident is a fair assessment because there kind of was a gap, but the gap closed, and you can't really fault Alonso Lopez for going for this gap. And then they touched. It wasn't reckless by Alonso Lopez to go for this gap, is all I'm saying. And I'm very, very sad that we didn't get another Jake Dixon interview with
Yeah.
TNT. I
That's the
honestly,
sorest part about this.
I honestly was thinking about you have to ask Keelin if there was a TNT interview like immediately. But unfortunately, we didn't get it. Unfortunately, Aspar locked the door on TNT.
Michael Lafferty was banging on the door like Eric
Yeah.
Andre. Let
Let
me
me
in.
in.
That's the next meme. That's the
Yeah,
meme that we need to make.
that's a good idea.
Michael
I'll do it.
Lafferty at Aspar in the White House. Let me in.
I will do it tomorrow.
Oh boy,
And
but uh,
and then what happened with the Moto 2 race? I
Joe
mean,
Roberts.
Joe Roberts on the podium, very, very nice overtake. And that's, I like the section at the track, like Pecco overtook Jorge Martin there too. To
Yes.
have this inside line there and you can just overtake somebody, there's a very, very nice spot on the track. And I think Joe Roberts had a very, very good race. I hope he can keep it up there, but with American racing next year, I can't see it, to be honest.
Yeah, I gotta
and
be honest, I
um,
agree.
I'm excited for Sergio Garcia because he finally shows, okay, here I am. So, and he showed very, very aggressive, but not too aggressive behavior on track. I think it was like on this limit on hard battling, and I really enjoyed to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
So good for both of them. And like Joe Roberts is a weird rider because he can lead a race in with 3 seconds and then crash. But then in the next race he's like 20th. So yeah, but it's good for him. Hopefully he can kind of keep this up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've always been a big Joe Roberts fan, and I always wanted to see him be the next big thing. Unfortunately, at Idle Trans, it just hasn't played out that way. You know, I mean, this season he's been nowhere pretty much. But again, India, great equalizer track. We see the talent make the difference, and Joe Robert did make the difference. It was nice to see him get a podium, but great battle with Sergio Garcia. Garcia deserves a lot of credit as well for that overtake. Very good move and a very good back and forth duel. It's what we like to see.
Like his overtake into turn 4 in the last lap was perfect.
Mm.
It was not unfair for Joe Roberts, but he just gave him the exact room he needed to give him, but nothing more.
It
And he
wasn't
did
Jorge Martin going around the
yeah,
outside.
yeah. It wasn't too aggressive where he pushed him wide, but he didn't leave the door open for the cutbacks. So very, very nice over there. But Sergio Garcia knows how to do this. I remember Argentina last year in Moto 3, where he overtook Dennis Foggia like on this very, very fine line again to not too aggressive, but like exactly on the limit. It couldn't be like 1 point or 0.1% more aggressive.
Mm.
And I'm very happy about it. What I thought was funny was Kamikaze Nozane in the last corner wiping out Rory Skinner, and Rory Skinner pushing the bike over the line. So yeah, luckily this wasn't for points, but yeah, this was stupid.
Another meme, Chariots of
Yeah,
Fire music with Rory Skinner.
yeah.
Da, 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 da.
And honestly, regarding the red flag, I thought it was a very, very good decision to red
Agreed.
flag the race, because when you have somebody in the gravel lying there, even if it's just a bike, and not a person, but if somebody crashes, and we saw in Portimao what could happen last year when there was this big fireball in the gravel trap because everybody was crashing there. And with Silverstone 2013, I mentioned it earlier, with
Hmm.
Mark Marcus, where he almost killed all the marshals there. We don't need to see this again. So I'm happily having another red flag and having a shortened race than running the risk of potentially somebody getting injured. And it's nice that we see this in Moto 2 as well, because usually the race direction in MotoGP is a lot friendlier towards the riders than in Moto2, because like TV times, you can't afford to red flag a Moto2 session and all of this because the MotoGP session has to start. I remember Jorge Navarro lying in the grass in Phillip Island with a
Yeah.
broken leg, and the race just continued. I remember in Silverstone this first lap incident with Borja Gomez and those couple of riders who crashed there. And then you could see on the next lap the riders going through where there was a marshal standing there with the bike. And yes, it's a yellow flag there, of course, but we've seen crashes under yellow flags again. And there's always something that potentially could happen. So I'm happy with a red flag, because it's just too dangerous when there's somebody standing in the gravel trap with the bike and riders. I mean, we saw with Mark Marquez and Joan Zarco what happens when one bike slams into another bike. And imagine that's a human being. I mean,
Oof.
he's dead and gone. And I mean, good decision by race direction. I think the stewards didn't fuck up. It's weird.
It is weird not having to criticize the stewards for once. It's an empty feeling,
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
But I think it's good thing to point out.
Yeah, it is, and it's better for the sport as well. They finally made the right decision for once. I think Jack Miller's monkey in the garage was the steward for this weekend, and that's why the decision was made. But it was the right decision. There's no question it was the right call to make.
Yeah, finally they listened to us and got the monkey in there. But also, Moto 3 was oddly unentertaining. And
Yeah.
I think the most entertaining Moto 3 thing that happened was Dennis Öncü in the press conference saying that Danny Olgados is fucked in the head and can't compete for the championship. I'm quoting here. So very, very funny. Dennis Öncü, please never change. He's absolutely hilarious. I love it. I'm all here for it. I hope he can be this way even in MotoGP someday, because all of the MotoGP riders are owned by sponsors and manufacturers. They can't have personal opinions anymore. And if you have somebody like Jack Dixon going on off on Darren Binder, I mean, you get all the criticism from those snowflakes in the paddock. But I'm all here for Dennis Öncü insulting everybody, and I want to hear more of this. But like, Jaume Masia was good. He was in front. Imagine how much damage Jaume Masia could have made if he hadn't those 2 or 3 races where he didn't finish.
I know, right?
I mean,
Would have been so different.
he crashed in Silverstone. Then he had the technical um, malfunction in, what was it, Austria?
I think so, yeah.
I don't know, but the race where he didn't finish because of a technical issue. I mean, now the Moto3 championship is wide open, and Dennis Unju kind of fucked himself during the weekend with whatever he did there. Who the fuck knows? Oh, I forgot something in Moto 2. Jeremy Alcoba is officially the dumbest rider on the grid. He wipes out in the first corner more or less everybody, gets a long lap penalty, fails to comply with this long lap penalty, gets a double long lap penalty, and crashes during the long lap because he can't make the corner. I mean, come on. It's officially the dumbest thing ever done with a long lap. I mean, Alonso Lopez fucked up the long lap in Misano, but not in Misano, in Mugello, but it wasn't as bad as this. How
Oh
can
god, it was
somebody
funny.
be so fucking stupid?
It is impressive. It is,
Mm.
you cause the race to be red flagged. You get a long lap, you disobey the long lap, you get a double long lap, and then you crash on the long lap. It is pretty funny. Oh,
We
oh
need to
god.
make a bad MotoGP award of dumbest of the year.
Yeah.
And Jeremy Alcoba is in the lead by a mile.
Oh yeah, leading contender. Dennis Onchu is no longer in that running. It's Jeremy Alcoba and then everybody
Dennis
else.
Dennis Onchu will get best overtake attempt for his overtake attempt on David Munoz. No doubt about it.
That's my highlight of the year so
Yes,
far. That's the
yes.
highlight of the year in any class. I don't even care.
And regarding Moto 3, do you know who this is?
um, I can't really. Who is it? I can't really
Wait
see.
a second. Can you see it
Uh,
now?
I. g- Who is that? Number nine. Is it number 95?
Yes.
Colin Vire.
Yes. My man. I got this in Jerez when he was racing in the Rookies Cup. We
Come
talked a
on.
little bit. He's also a very, very nice young man.
Shout out
And
Colin Vire.
yeah, he is a bit of a menace too, but I'm all here for it. And I'm so bummed out because it felt like he was in a situation where he had the pace to overtake Ayumu Sasaki for the podium, and it felt like he was thinking too much because like Ayumu Sasaki was in the championship hunt, but then he still wanted to get his podium. Then there was Toba in the mix, and he didn't know what to do. It felt like, and it felt like he kind of half-assed the later part of the race, and then unfortunately crashed. I just screamed at my phone watching this, and so sad. To quote Donald Trump here, so sad. And I mean, two sides. I mean, you see, Colin Vire can race a motorcycle. He is so incredibly talented, and he's a rookie. He makes those mistakes, and he will grow from it. But on the other side, he could have had his first podium today, and it all looked like he closed the gap to Sasaki. It looked like okay, he will just breeze by him and take the podium. But I think he got caught up in too much thinking today.
Yeah.
But I think the podium will definitely come. He is so incredibly talented, and he will do some serious damage. And honestly, I'm very very happy with his rookie season. I never thought it would be this good.
Yeah, absolutely. And that now, to be fair, that was the most interesting thing that happened during the race. But it was such a shame Colin Vire fell at the last hurdle, really, because he was having such a good race, and he was there with Ayumi Sasaki and Kaido Toba. And like you said, it's kind of like his brain just disconnected from the rest of his body, and he just shut down. He didn't really know, do I pass, do I not? And then he ended up just falling off. It was a real shame, but I've been very happy with Colin Vire's season. I think he's shown so much improvement and progression, and I hope he doesn't dwell on this for too long because it was still a very good performance.
Yes, and I think he didn't want to be the guy who takes out his teammate who
Yeah,
could take over the championship lead. But then he still tried it, but didn't want to do it
Yeah,
wrongly. I just feel like he was caught up in a situation where he didn't race for himself naturally. Like we discussed with Pecco earlier, like when you think too much
yeah.
is not beneficial when you don't act on your instincts.
He,
So
yeah, we have a saying, he was caught in two minds. He either should have fully committed or not committed at all, and he kind of went one foot in, one foot out, and that's, yeah, you're
yeah,
absolutely right. That's exactly what happened.
yeah, he kind of half-assed it,
Yeah,
like half-assing passing him, half-assing not passing him, and it just went wrong.
yeah.
So unfortunate for him, but I think he will just learn from it, and next time probably won't do the same mistake again.
Mm.
But yeah, Moto 3 was oddly unentertaining apart from this.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think Moto 3 is the only class where having a new track had the opposite effect to Moto 2 and Moto GP. Instead of being mental, it completely just nullified everyone,
Yeah,
which was weird. But I'm hoping when we go to Japan, we'll be back to the usual maniacal championship that we know and love.
yes. What also was very strange that we saw, what's his name? Fuck, Diogo Moreira dropped so much. I mean, Diogo is such a good rider, but for one reason or another, he can't get it together.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's weird. I expected a lot more from him this season, and I hope in Moto 2 he will find some success.
Yeah, same as that. Like you said, especially today, he seemed like he was getting it together, and then he just fell back again. I really don't know what's happening with Diogo Moreira. It was weird.
Yeah, and I have to check the championship standings in Moto 2 now, because in Moto 3, I'm sorry,
Hmm.
because I don't know what's going on there. Like, how far away is David Alonso from pulling a Pedro Acosta?
He might not be as far away as people think. He's had a pretty good few weeks. He might do
Yeah,
it.
he's currently in fourth position and has 23 points to Danny Olgado.
Okay, not bad.
Like Danny Olgado is leading with 174 points. Then Masia and Ayumu Sasaki is 174 and 173. And then in fourth, David Alonso with 151. And Dennis Önci with 146. And Ivan Otola with 140. So he is not out of the championship battle as well.
God,
So,
that's tighter than I thought.
yeah, yeah. And I'm very, very excited. I mean,
Imagine if
looking at it,
Dennis Onchu wins it.
oh my god, it would be so hilarious. Like, I think Danny Algado winning it would be a little bit anticlimactic because
Hmm.
he is competing in Moto 3 next year again,
Hmm.
which is weird in a way. But Jaume Masia is also a little bit weird because, Jaume Masia has been so long in Moto 3
Yeah.
to not be this super talent like an Isan Guevara or like a Pedro Acosta. And Ayuma Sasaki would be nice. But also, you know what I thought today? How wild would it be if Ayuma Sasaki wins the championship without winning a race?
Wow. That wouldn't be far off Joan Mir, would it? In
Yeah.
2020?
And the best thing that could happen would be David Alonso winning.
That would be cool. That would be really, really cool.
This would be the best thing ever.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
This little fucker.
This
He's
little
so good.
guy who just came from nowhere just wins Moto 3.
Yeah. Like Colombia. I mean, officially he's racing for Colombia, but he's born in Madrid. I would consider him Spanish. But like for promotion in Colombia, this would be huge. Also in South America in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the promotion it would give MotoGP in South America would be amazing to have a world champion from there. Yeah, I'm all for it. Absolutely. I like David Alonso.
Yeah. And how the fuck did Danny Olgado end up in fourth position?
Beats me.
I'm just seeing this for the first time now. To quote Donald Trump again. You're telling me that for the first time.
Yeah, I have no idea how Danny Olgato ended up in P4. He was kind of all over the place, but I have no idea how he ended up there.
Looking at the world standing right now, Jose Antonio Rueda is pretty impressive considering that he finished every race in the points except Argentina. And it looks like he finished every race in general.
Yeah, Rueda's been very impressive. He's kind
He's
of exceeded my expectations.
I mean, he's not in this sense exceeding my expectations because I thought he would battle for race wins, he would battle for podiums more, but he's very consistent. He takes the points when they come, and that's a nice that's definitely a nice achievement.
Yeah, no argument from me. I agree with you.
Yeah, so next week is Japan, right? I have zero anticipation for getting up this early for a fucking race. Like, what the fuck? I don't want to do this. And now we have like 5 races in Southeast Asia and Australia, which
Yeah,
I'm
we're gonna feel it after this.
totally not a fan of to get up this early. I mean, like, the America's GP is nice to watch it late in the evening, and India was okay to watch it today as early as it was. But honestly, no. I don't want to wake up at 4 a.m. to watch Moto 3. It is what it is. I guess we signed up for this shit.
Yep.
But yeah, I wish you a good week. I wish you a good race weekend. And then we will
Likewise.
see each other next week again. So
Absolutely.
goodbye, everybody. Thank you for listening.